So thank you very much for having me and congratulations again. Voilà. And I propose we start with a warm-up and we are going to watch two little sequences of the film I made with Belgian TV director Stefan de Kostere in 1984 about Nam June Paik. The reason I made this because I was a groupie. I was a groupie of Nam June Paik. I met Nam June Paik for the first time in 1977 at the Documenta in Kassel. And it was Wilfert Zogerath who curated the video and film program. And we all know why Nam June was there, because this was the beginning of the, I would not say the recuperation, but it was the beginning of the declaration of Joseph Beuys as a saint. And Nam June Paik loved boys because Nam June loved shamans, and Nam June loved this whole connection between the East and the West. And Joseph Beuys was seen as a shaman. I mean, I'm not going to tell you all the stories he made up about being a Wehrmacht pilot shot down above Siberia and being saved by the indigenous people. But Nam June Paik saw in him a shaman. And of course, Nam June Paik saw in Joseph Beuys and Wolf Vostell and all the Germans examples of this tradition of fluxus. What I also want to tell is that Nam June Paik in 1977 was basically considered, I'm sorry to say so, as an American-German artist. He loved Germany and he loved the United States. Germany was very important because the USIA, the United States Information Agency, they spent a lot of effort to make publicity for American radical avant-garde. And which was radical avant-gardism? Of course, it was electronics. And probably you heard the name of AET, the Experimental Art and Technology Group, which was funded by Bell Telephone. And Bell Telephone, they subsidized programs abroad as well, in India and Ahmedabad, but also they worked with the music studios in Munich, Freiburg, and also Darmstadt and Köln. And Nam June Paik was part of the German scene. And let's see what we did in 1984. The person you will see to your left is the main anchorman of Belgian radio and television in 1984. He presented the news, and we were incredibly lucky to make this program of Nam June Paik, which is consisting of a documentary and a program Vuzac, and we could present it on Sunday night right after the news. My parents were scandalized. I was very young, and my nephew was the president, the CEO of the Belgian Radio and Television. I think it's thanks to him that I could make that stuff. And my parents called up him and said, "You should stop giving him work because this is scandalous." Because can you imagine on Sunday night after the news to see Charlotte Moorman with the TV breasts? So this was the beginning of my TV career, Nam June Paik, 1984. Let's have two excerpts, very tiny excerpts. Thank you. Oh, I have to do it.
Give me the downbeat.
Pike! Pike! Come here! Pike, we're rehearsing your piece.
You see, problem of video art is it is reproductive art, multiple art. So you can repeat it and you can multiply them. And that's good and bad. That it makes them cheap mass art. You know, almost every important thing like life, death, deflorations, that happens only once. Most important, and Cezanne happened only once, and Leonardo happened only once. We want to keep that onceness of high art somehow incorporated in the electronic art form, which is basically reproductive. So by breaking up record of all the records which never exist, which will never we buy again, you know. When I am breaking record, I am killing there maybe only last remaining of a certain pop song. So I am committing cultural crime. And by committing cultural crime, I emphasize the onceness of the culture.
So can you imagine Sunday night right after the news to see this of somebody who says that I committing cultural crime. And you see already this Nam June Paik. This is the Nam June Paik before 1984. Nam June Paik has two lives, I think, which is Nam June Paik Fluxus in the United States, but also in Germany. And then in 1984, returning to Korea and also radicalized Korean TV. Here he's still busy radicalizing music, radicalizing electronic TV. And don't forget that already in 1960s, he had a show called Electronic Music TV in the Galerie Parnasse in Wuppertal. And that was, of course, the region of Joseph Beuys. This is the second sequence I want to show you because it will make clear that Nam June Paik is committed to cultural crime, that he wants to create unique doubles of the art of reproduction, which is the art of cinema, the art of TV, and the art of music.
Wanneer door toedoen van de digitale technieken nog nauwelijks een verschil zal merkbaar zijn tussen een origineel en een reproductie, tussen een origineel en een dubbel.
Important thing is once and non-retrievable. So non-retrievable thing is important. So it would be interesting to use those kind of mass producible medium to make unique thing, like video sculpture is generally speaking unique. And even artists ask unique because a museum is going to buy my video garden. Although I can make 100 video garden, they are specially asked me that I am not allowed to duplicate them. It is, of course, it's, that is cultural crime that, that make art poor, you know, because that can be enjoyed everywhere. But that is how high art works.
Voila, so these are two excerpts, and what the anchorman is saying in Flemish, he's saying, well, Nam June Paik wants to create, with the means of digital techniques, he wants to create unique doubles, which reminds you, of course, of what? This is 1982, 83, we shot interviews with him in New York, in Düsseldorf, and in Paris. It reminds you of artificial intelligence, right? I mean, and that's the fantastic thing about Nam June Paik. He has always been, without wanting to do that, predicting what is going to come. Voila.
Why were you interested in Nam June Paik? Because you were saying that also from your own perspective, working with Belgium TV, that you wanted to redefine the role of the audience with television, or the role of television.
I was incredibly young. I was 19 when I started to be interested in TV. So I met Nam June Paik and Wolf Hostel and Joseph Beuys and all these crazy guys in 1977. And because my nephew was the boss of TV, we started to misuse Belgium state television, and I could do whatever I wanted. And I worked with John Cage and Merce Cunningham, and I worked with other people. With John Cage and Merce Cunningham, I was going to pick on TV mushrooms near Brussels and listening to the music of mushrooms. Also after the prime news. So my parents, they really didn't want to see me anymore for years, because this was a scandal in the family. I was very interested in community TV. Community TV was interesting for me because I was part of a radical student group, and we were very interested in what was going on in Bologna. Bologna had, in 1976, 77, 78, radical television created by the leftist movement in Bologna. But don't forget that not only the left was interested in participation in closed circuit and community television, also the right. Because what you don't know probably is that our friend Silvio Berlusconi, when he created Milano Due, which was a residential area in Milan for very rich people, that he created closed circuit television. Milano Due became the headquarters of what? Of his TV channels. So everybody was interested in closed circuit, participation television, the left and the right. And of course, then the media took it over because participation TV got replaced by social media at some point. I wanted to radicalize TV. I wanted to work with TV. I wanted to broadcast TV. I wanted to work for public television. I've always been a public servant, and I believe in public service. And so that's what I was interested in Nam June Paik. And I was interested in the fact that maybe we could also change TV and therefore museums. So when Nam June Paik proposed a TV chair for museums, then I decided I have to get to New York because I have to work with him. And in New York, I met all these witnesses, and I don't know if you have these publications for your archives. I hope so. Otherwise, I give them to you. But these are the first exhibitions of Nam June Paik at the Galleria Bonomo. And this one is of 65. Then you see one of, that's the way these things looked in 65. And here you see immediately the name of John Cage. And you see also Major Lindsay, who played a major role in his early television experiments. He was the mayor of New York. This was in 65. Nam June started to sell that stuff, okay? And there were very smart people buying it. And then this is the way his first exhibitions were announced. My booklets got a little bit of mold, as you can see to the right, but that's okay. And there you see the name of Shuei Abe disappearing, who developed the synthesizer. And then you see group shows and you see solo shows. So you see the whole Düsseldorf and Northern Europe connection, which is appearing there. And this is the second publication in the gallery, 68. And this one is Nam June Paik with the collaboration of all these artists. And it's true, and you know that also, that there was kind of critique on Nam June, that he was not hiding behind all these peers, but that he was also using them. And John Cage loved to be used by Nam June, and you will see that in the media. But as you said yesterday, and your artist, there is always a tradition in Korean art to combine tradition and avant-garde. And these are early works of Nam June Paik, where he started to make drawings on the basis of traditional scroll paintings. This is the last catalog of the Galleria Bonino. Basically, the work of Nam June Paik was already very expensive. I remember in that time that you could only buy a Nam June Paik robot and a television screen for the price of a little BMW or a little Volkswagen. So that was already kind of expensive, right? And this is John Cage, who is continuously helping Nam June, commenting Nam June. And then you see this wonderful thing that they glued on top of that page, Dear John, because Nam June Paik sometimes misses names. Nam June Paik loves to make mistakes because his slogan in his life is, you have to solve a mistake by making another mistake. And through these mistakes, you make mistakes and then you make art. And this exhibition was then dedicated to Alan Kaproff, the father of happening. And therefore, now I'm going to show you John Cage, what he said about Nam June Paik. And you have to imagine the silence in a TV program. We had 17-second silence, which is not due on TV, okay? And we allowed for John Cage to say nothing.
He came up to me with a pair of scissors and cut off my tie, and he threatened to, I think he had me take off my jacket, and he threatened to cut my shirt also, but then he didn't. A little bit later, he walked through the entire audience and left the room. And we all sat absolutely still. I don't know how long it was, but it seemed to be a very long period of time. It couldn't have been more than 20 minutes, though, that we sat absolutely silent, that we had been literally terrified by his performance. Finally, the telephone rang, and Mary Bauermeister answered it. And then she turned to the rest of us, and she said, "Is Nam June calling to say that the performance is finished?"
And now you have silence.
No, I don't think he is a musician.
No, I don't think he's a musician.
I think he's involved with sculpture and with technology.
Can you imagine my TV producer, he wanted to edit, of course. He said, no silence on TV, okay, because then people go to another channel. And I said, well, then I leave and I take my program off broadcast, so they left the silence in. In 1982, I went to New York and worked with Nam June Paik at the occasion of his retrospective exhibition, where again Charlotte Moorman was involved, which you have seen, but also at the same time as the exhibition, WNET, they produced and they showed Nam June Paik on the air. He was immediately on the air also in New York through his gallery, Electronic Art Intermix. And of course, he was announced like the grand dada of video at the Howard Weiss Gallery. The Howard Weiss Gallery was very much involved in producing these early works of Nam June Paik. And here you see some dirty stuff. This is actually an artwork by Wolf Vostell. And Wolf Vostell was playing the piano and he was cleaning Steinways with thinner, with turpentine. And the cottons and the destroyed pianos became artworks by Wolf Vostell in the matter of fluxus. And then you see one of the batches of Joseph Beuys, I Don't Know Weekends. This was the kind of stuff we organized in museums when I started to curate freelance exhibitions. And then we started to have correspondence, dear Chris, blah, blah, blah. And the last thing is important because Nam June Paik was always complaining about money. I mean, always complaining, and he kept complaining until the end of his life. He's saying, I'm out of money, although I spent $90,000 for it during the last 2 years. I'm desperate. I beg you for your understanding. I mean, even when Nam June was loaded with money, he complained about money. So we did first in 1982, Do You Know, a tribute to Nam June Paik, where we interviewed, we went with a Betacam, a very, very heavy Betacam, video camera to New York, and we did hundreds of hours of interviews with his friends, with Howard Weiss, with Holly Solomon, John Hannard of the Whitney, name it. And we came back with that material, and that's how I convinced Belgium TV to do something with Nam June. This is his collage. It's very important that Nam June liked dirty things. You saw that in the piano, you saw that also with Charlotte. The TV chair was based on a toilet situation, of course. And he was saying, do you know how soon TV chair will be available in most museums? And that led me to work beyond TV, also with Nam June Paik in museum situations. We started to correspond, and he kept sending me these collages. He said that painting was the past, and he got into TV because of collage, because for him TV was a continuation, expansion of the collage technique. And he started to make lots of money. This is, by the way, in Penthouse, in Playboy magazine, an advertisement for Calvin Klein by Nam June Paik. Nam June was one of the first working also for the mass industry, but he kept complaining about money. I was very lucky that he signed it for me, so when I don't have money anymore, I can sell all that stuff. And so here, this is the situation in the museum in Ghent. The man in the middle is very important because that's the director of 200 Models, the famous film about Frank Zappa. And Nam June always wanted to get acquainted with Frank Zappa because you remember that Frank Zappa was a student of Boulez. Frank Zappa was not interested at all in Nam June Paik, and I still don't understand why. I asked his son recently, and he said he was not interested because the guy, Nam June Paik, kept bugging him. Nam June worked with everybody, Lou Reed, Laurie Anderson. Frank Zappa never wanted to work with him, and Nam June only agreed to be present on podiums when we presented his unique doubles, okay? That was the way to do it. And this is then in the Centre Pompidou. After the Whitney retrospective, a few months later, Nam June created his TV garden in the Centre Pompidou, and here you see him sleeping. Nam June always slept, okay? He didn't have narcolepsy, but he always fell asleep, and that made him so endearing, okay? And then he woke up, and he had another idea, right? And then you have the second Nam June Paik, and that's the Nam June Paik who then returned to Korea in 1984. So we just saw Nam June Paik in Europe and the United States, Nam June Paik Fluxus, and then he go back to Korea. But I'm talking too much, right? No, but I mean, you can ask questions. You have a question? Okay.
Yeah. I just had just a question. Yeah, just one, because of the time limitation. And you interviewed Nam June Paik in person back in the 1980s, which to me feels like what it would be for a teenager today to meet BTS or Blackpink in real life. Yeah, for me. Yeah. If Nam June Paik were alive now and looking at the world we live in today, that is AI dramatically transforming everything, now authoritarianism rising again, and even apocalyptic fears being voiced, what do you think Nam June Paik would make of all this? And do you think he could still say tomorrow will be better?
I think so, because Nam June Paik was not afraid of electronics, he was not afraid of technologies, he was not afraid of digital media. I don't think that Nam June Paik, but I cannot speak for him, would have been afraid of artificial intelligence, because he would first destroy it in order to improve it. He would first destroy it in order to make something else of it. And I think that's the great thing about these fathers of the avant-garde. Think about his friends like Merce Cunningham and John Cage. I mean, avant-garde, not the old avant-garde only, but you have to, it's an idea, I think, by Adorno, you have to destroy in order to build it up. And when Nam June Paik came back to Korea in 1984, he didn't want to destroy, he wanted to create a community between the East and the West, and he proposed these incredible satellite TV programs, which costed a lot of money. So Nam June Paik called us also at Belgium State TV, but then our great period of doing whatever we wanted was over, because suddenly the number of visitors started to count at every single television channel. And I tell you, these programs we made, nobody looked at them really. So we couldn't be involved in producing this. But when Nam June Paik went to Korea, he made three events, one in 1984, one in 1986, and one in 1988, and always at the occasion of the Asian Games, because he was very smart. He was like a student of Michel de Certeau. He misused situations, and that's what we loved about him. He said there is a festival, so there must be people with money. I mean, when he would be in Abu Dhabi, he would have looked at Mrs. Kanu and say, how can I misuse you, okay? That's typical Nam June. So Nam June is a misuser, which is great. We all did that. And so he created these 3 TV events. And later then he published his books, Set Art. And these are the 3 major events on satellite TV. Good Morning, Mr. Orwell, 1984, Bye Bye Kipling, 1986, Wrap Around the World in 1988. And Nam June Paik was immediately interested in how many people are watching me. And he completely exaggerated. He published these figures on his books, and he counted 33 million, which is ridiculous, okay? But the TV CEOs, they believed him, and the company, Sony, they believed him. And he was very good at misuse. And I think that's also a great thing about Korean art. There is a misuse of tradition, a misuse of many things, and in order to create something new. Voila. Okay, it's time for the film.
Thank you, Chris. We are now going to watch Moon is the Oldest TV. It's a 2023 documentary about Paik. This film tells his whole story and shed light on the context of his radically innovative work, as well as the work of his peers. It has been praised as essential viewing for anyone who is interested in video art, mass media, and the internet. Before Paik revolutionized contemporary art with screens and circuits, he was a classically trained musician who fled war from Korea, studied in Germany, as Chris did the introduction, and found his artistic voice in the 60s as part of New York's avant-garde scene. Director Amanda Kim tells this narrative through rare archival footage and interviews. The film shows us how Paik's nomadic life and hybrid artistic approach foresaw our current reality of perpetual connectivity and digital culture.
Can I just add something? If you want to read more about Nam June Paik, you can go on Google. Nam June Paik before 1984, the best profile written is by Kelvin Tompkins in The New Yorker, April 75. You can download it for free. And then the next article is an article by Professor, and you have to pronounce her name, which is a wonderful piece. It's one of the best pieces ever written, Professor Ri Ji-won. And Ri Ji-won, she wrote this piece about Nam June Paik in Korea, which is fantastic because like Maya reminded me recently, and also Nam June Paik did so much for Korea. It's thanks to him that there is a pavilion for Korean art which now exists 30 years in Venice. It's thanks to him that the Whitney show of 1983 went to Korea. He was really seminal in giving back. And the program, which was produced by Jennifer Stockman, by the way, who is involved with the Guggenheim, this program is telling also about the creator, not only the misuser, but the creator, right?
Actually, it's thanks to Jennifer Stockman that we're watching this film today.